Chris was a young man seeking adventure when he left Belfast in 1979 on his Moto Guzzi LeMans. He always planned to ride to Australia, but he never quite made it. Until now.
My name's Chris, I've been riding for 47 years and I've been riding Motoguzzi, which we have a combined age of 109 now. First bike was BSA Bantam that I bought for about 20 quid and bought in the box of bits, and spent most of my 16th year fixing it all up, putting it back together again, repainting it and working out how an engine worked. Not that there was much to BSA Bantam engines, only about 3 moving parts in it. And I suppose when until you're 17, you're riding around push bikes all the time, and the thought of actually being able to go up hills without pedaling is just sheer ecstasy, you know. So even on the BSA Bantam. But I had a BSA 250 after that, and then I went up to 650 BMW, and then I had a Norton Commando, and I thought it arrived then. And then one day I saw the Motoguzzi sitting in the shop window and I had a test drive, and that was love at first sight. I was still a student, working Saturdays and so on, and just determined that this is the bike I wanted. It cost about £2,000. I saved up and bought it, and I thought it was the coolest bike in town. I'd always had this notion of driving to Australia on a motorbike. I think I'd seen a girl doing it back in the early 70s. She rode straight around the world on a BSA Bantam. So I had a BSA Bantam, so I thought, well, I can do that. Well, the plan was to drive down Europe in September and go to Greece, Turkey, across Tehrān, Pakistan, India, and then ship the boat from India to Australia, because you couldn't drive across Burma even in those days. London. So I didn't get away in September. It was about October before I got enough money to have everything packed away. I was intending to sell a Moto Guzzi and buy a BMW again or something like that, but nobody wanted to buy the Guzzi, so I thought, well, I'm not going to sell it cheap, I'm going to take it, because I thought it was good enough for the road to Australia. And lots of people said, oh no, you'll never get that bike, will never make it to Australia. Got to London in the October '79, and I was just ready to leave with all my visas, my carnet de passage for the bike, all my guidebooks and everything. And then the American embassy in Iran got taken over by the students, the Islamic Revolution. I think it was the night before I was leaving, and that basically shut the door east. So I thought, well, I've got to go away. I can't go to leave Belfast, tell everybody I'm going to Australia, go to London for 2 weeks and then come home. That would be a complete disaster for a 21-year-old. So I thought, well, I'll go to South Africa. And that's really where the title of the book came, Going the Wrong Way, because from that, you know, I'd actually driven about 400 miles, and after that everything was chaotic. At the bottom of Egypt is Lake Nasser, which you take a boat across. It's a couple of days in like an old paddle steamer at the time, to catch the train down across the desert. And by the time that everybody got off the boat, the train had left. It was probably the only train to leave in time in Africa, so we were stuck in the top of the desert. We looked at the map and it said there's a road that goes down to Khartoum, so I thought, well, we may as well drive. And there's a crowd of a couple of Dutch guys in a Combi, 2 English guys in a Land Rover, and an elderly Canadian couple in a Datsun 120Y. So we all decided we'd drive across the desert, and we got about, as you say, a couple of 100 yards. Everybody waved us off. We got a couple of 100 yards out of town, and the cars just sunk into the sand and just stopped. So we had to camp there because we were too far to walk back and too far we couldn't move on. So we realised we were going to have to let the tyres down, and it was pretty despairing at the time, because we thought there's, I think, 300 or 400 miles of desert to cross. South Africa was in the middle of apartheid, so it was hard to get into and even harder to get out of. There's very few flights, and I was trying to get a job in a ship or something, but I couldn't get anything. And at the last minute there was a yacht race was coming through, and one of the guys had hurt his leg, so I got his place in the boat after telling a few fibs about my sailing experience. Never been anything other than a dinghy before that. And there was in a 56-footer ocean racer going across the South Atlantic and the North Atlantic. I was just traveling, it didn't really matter where I was going, just enjoying the process of traveling from one place to the next, just taking life as it came. Spent about 6 months in the States. America was good fun. It was more living the American dream. Sex, drugs, rock and roll. 21, you have to do what you have to do. So I got up to Canada and I realised, well, let's see, I'd never practically heard of South America before, but I thought I might as well head down that direction and see how far I get. I was on the road for about 1.5 years by that stage. Did a bit of work on the bike in the States. The bike was pretty much wrecked as well. Even the suspension was done and the suspension was tied up with a rope, and one of the fork legs have actually cracked just from the hammering the suspension had taken. Went through Mexico to Panama, met a guy in the bar who drove a Norton Commando. He was a pilot of a old DC-6, so I hitched a lift from him to Medellin. We were chatting to the pilot and I said, well, what have you been delivering to Panama? And he said, potatoes. Sounds a bit suspect, but I never really thought much about it until we got to Medellin and the place is full of guys running around with guns. Very nervous. So we made our way south down to Peru and Bolivia. Got some money sent over from home, and went down to Buenos Aires on the train, the last bit, and came home. And that was really the end of my biking and travelling experience as I thought. I'd had enough of boats, I'd had enough of motorcycles. I just wanted to get a job and settle down a bit, I suppose. I basically gave up the idea of writing a book until about 3 years ago. Got my journals out again and decided to complete the story. And after that, I regenerated my interest in bikes and got involved with the whole bike scene again. And one of my mates said to me, well, you never actually got to Australia. Why not give it another go? And whereas the first trip was a sort of coming of age event, I was 21, transition from boy to man type thing. This is more of a coming of old age. Just because you're 60 odd, you don't have to go out the garden and dig spuds all the rest of your life. Just can be more to it. I felt fit enough to do everything we did when I was 21, so let's give it a go. Well, I suppose it was a sort of, in my mind, it was to see if I could do what I did when I was 21 at 64, and if I was going to do that, I wanted to do it on the same machine to get the most exact sort of replication of what I tried to do then. Also, I'm just stubborn and stupid, I guess. Rode down to Athens, and then I went from Athens to Dubai, from Dubai to Lahore in Pakistan. The original idea was to go to Calcutta on the right-hand side of India and take a boat, but I'd heard through the travelling grapevine, basically the guy said it's really hard, a lot of bureaucracy to ship out of India. So I drove up to Nepal to fly the bike from Nepal to Brisbane. So I finally joined up with the bike there last week. So Adrian was an old friend from home as well, an old biker friend, so he's come out to act as security and buy me beers and stuff like that. So it's been good fun so far. Australia has always been my dream destination to ride to. I suppose at this stage it'd be nice to go back to some of the places and see some places that I maybe didn't have enough time to concentrate on, to see as much as I would have. In my older age, spend more time on one place rather than seeing a whole lot of places. I've done that. It's nice to go and stop somewhere for maybe 6 months and maybe look forward to doing that and learning a bit more about the culture and the lifestyle of each different areas, you know. Pretty hard to say. I mean, there's so many different places that are interesting. I mean, South Africa, I enjoyed the scenery and the people. Australia, the same. Pakistan was probably the most fun in a way because we had to travel by armed escort the whole way across. So we got sitting in the back of Land Rovers chatting to these kids with Kalashnikovs who were sort of 18-year-old in the army and just chatting away with what their lives were and what our lives were. And it was good fun. So everywhere's different from a different aspect. People sort of ask me, what's your favourite city? And very often you like Sydney because, not so much because of the city, but because of the people you met there. You had a really good time. Fun is when you stop rather than when you're riding. Riding's obviously part of the adventure, but the magic happens whenever you stop and you meet people and you have a good time. Basically just go for it, get on your bike and ride. I think people plan things too much. If you just get on your bike and ride, things will happen, and it'll be much more exciting as well because you don't know what's going to happen. Don't take that the wrong way, but it is, you know, if you stop somewhere and you're having a really good time, you don't need to go to your next destination that you had planned because you're better where you are. Just get on your bike and go.
Chris has written a book about his adventures called Going the Wrong Way. So if you'd like to find out more about the book, we've put a link in the description to Chris's website. I hope you enjoyed Chris's video, which is not so much a coming of age story as it is a coming of old age story. His words, not mine. You can find out more about Chris and purchase his book at chrisdonaldson.world. Thanks for watching, and remember, as Chris says, it's adventure before dementia.